what would be the deciding factor that your dad would see in a certain business and be like, that's the business I want to get involved in, or I want to kind of be a part of? What was the main factor that kind of drove him, you think?
Whatever made money.
If it makes money, it makes sense.
If it makes money, it makes sense.
There was a gentleman who, and again, it's hard for me to, I got to go back to set up the story, but to make a long story short, there was a guy that had a auto body shop, car mechanic auto body shop in our neighborhood. And I had known him because I met him through a friend that I stood up for a wedding, and he was at the wedding. This gentleman, his name was Matt. He had the shop, and it was, my father was into cars. My father loved old cars. My father, that was a hobby of his, a love of his. And so my dad came to the wedding to see me, and so I introduced the guy to him at the wedding, and they became friends. And my father started going to the guy's shop, started bringing cars there, and the guy knew who my dad was, and he liked, he wanted to get close to my dad or just hang around him. And so we started hanging out there, or bringing cars there, and my father was meeting some people there. And anyhow, Matt got himself in trouble. He was doing drugs, and he got himself in a whole lot of trouble. But he had $1 million a year business. And when my father heard, again, and my father wasn't an educated man, but my father heard this guy's making $1 million a year, right away he thought, well, this guy's bringing home $1 million a year. No, there's $1 million of business going through there. So my father wanted to get in this guy's business. So he played hero to him. The guy guy's family was ready to leave him. He had 3 mortgages on his house. They were going to take his house. So my father said, well, here, we at the time we were rehabbing houses, and we were doing, some real estate stuff. So that's what my father wanted to do, with legitimize the money, and he wanted to put it into real estate. So we bought his house, this guy's house, and the deal my father made with him was this guy was going to pay rent to live in the house, and at some point when he gets on his feet, he can buy the house back. So that was what the deal that was made. I didn't particularly like the guy. I didn't get along with him. I knew what he was about. I knew he was, and I even told my father. I said, Dad, that this guy's not a good guy. He's doing things that you wouldn't be very happy about. Well, my father didn't hear that part. All he saw was dollars, dollars, dollars. All he saw was an opportunity for him to make money. So what ended up happening was the FBI set this guy up, Matt. Found this guy, Matt, was telling everybody now that we were hanging there at the shop that he was part of our crew, part of my father's crew. And so the FBI got wind of it, and they sent somebody in there. They sent a guy, an agent in there to drive a tow truck. And it's funny because, when I talk about my dad, I always mention how good he was at his job. And my father was very sharp when it came to being on the street. And so they were on tape. This guy was wearing a wire on us now. And on tape, you hear my father telling this guy, who is this guy, this tow truck driver work for you? And he said, well, yeah, he's a tow truck driver. And he said, well, he's got a beeper number on the side of his car, side of his truck. What kind of tow truck driver has a beeper number on the side of their truck? In other words, you got to beep the tow truck driver, and he's going to pull over and call you back. So the point my father was making to him was, he told him, I hope you're not doing anything wrong with this guy, because he's probably an FBI agent. Well, that's because my father didn't believe anybody was doing anything wrong there. And technically, nobody was doing anything wrong there. But the lies that they caught him in, I mean, he told them he was working for my father. He told him he was giving out juice loans. Told him he was in the mob. A bunch of stuff. And that he met Frank Sinatra at our house in Wisconsin. It was just a lie after lie after lie, and the government was believing this. And so they tried to build a case on this, and they ended up taking the house away from us that we owned, that we bought legitimately. That was part of, and that was another thing I did for my father. Any legitimate businesses that we put any money into or tried to start up, I was always responsible for. I always had to take care of that on top of taking care of anything else for him, on top of taking care of my life and my family. So that, kind of bouncing around here a little bit, but my father liked that guy, Matt. He liked him. He felt sorry for him. And that was probably cost my father his life of freedom, because of that case, that just snowballed into other stuff. And but they never able to really use this guy's testimony against us, because most of it was lies. And it was outrageous lies. It wasn't even, it was stuff that people were making up just because they wanted to say they were part of their life. But to answer your question, I'm sorry I went off the beaten path, but what the businesses my father liked were businesses that made money. If he saw you making money, he wanted to get in your business, in your pocket.